Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a glorious, sunny, mid-60 degree Wednesday morning. I have an hour or two this morning. So a achievable project in that time frame is to find my oil leak on my Blueprint 383. I have been plenty vocal about the fact that I don't like the overuse of the word stroker, and in this case, the misuse. This engine is a Blueprint 383. It's brand new. The block, heads, crank, rods, pistons, everything has never been any other size. It's not a stroked 350 or any other cubic inch. It was born and delivered a 383 cubic inch small block Chevy. Done. So, these valve covers are fine quality. I dislike, well, hang on a second. Like I started to say, I dislike tin, if you will, for lack of a better term, or thin metal valve covers, especially on a small block Chevy. If it has a flaw, there's only 4 bolts holding this entire valve cover or rocker cover on. And the tin ones, even when you put the spreaders on them, even in factory form, they always weep a little bit. Now, I love the vintage Moroso gold stuff, but it's thin tin. These are perfect. Well, they've been over-tightened a little bit, but these with a set of spreader bars, maybe the T-handles, I mean, that's vintage cool. But with this, probably comes a leak. In the best case scenario, it would be okay for a while. I ran plenty of these. Always been in love with them. They came in different colors. I like the red ones too, but the gold stuff has a whole Facebook page, really. No joke. But I avoid them for anything you want to drive, and you don't want it belching oil everywhere. So that leaves you with an aluminum cover. Now, these were nice aluminum covers, and I was originally gonna just machine off the stroker, maybe the 383 as well, repaint them and whatnot. But I had these in stock, and these are actually probably more period correct. You know, whatever. I need a tall valve cover. I didn't know what to expect under the valve cover. It has probably Blueprint's own steel roller rocker. It has a hydraulic roller camshaft. No stud girdle. So I don't know if a stock height cover would work, but it already had tall covers on it. I am a fan of the tall cover. There's really, if you have the clearance, there's no drawback. And most all, I mean, these are imported valve covers, but they're solid cast. Today I'm going to use their eBay fake Fel-Pro, I'm sure. They're blue like a Fel-Pro, but I don't believe they're actually Fel-Pro. Although they were in a Fel-Pro box, I've had them so long I can't tell you. But they got the blue plastic on either side of the blue, whatever composite that is, with a metal core. So it should hold its shape. They actually fit the cover. You have to try them on because sometimes they won't clear the ridge here. So this has a ridge to help contain it. So did this one, but you can see what happened. See the gasket? That's on the lower rear of the engine. So that is where my oil leak was coming from. Running down over the engine, the transmission, blowing back on the rear end. That's the smoking gun. That makes me happy. So I'm going to put a different cast aluminum cover on it. The gaskets I just mentioned, and this had 1/4 inch bolts. That's the way Blueprint probably ships it. I don't know, maybe they don't even send it with covers now that I think about it. If you look at the picture, you're probably on your own for valve covers. Either way, this had a nice 1/4 inch flange headed bolt, but I don't like putting bolts into aluminum on something you're going to be taking in and out a lot. I'm a stud guy in that situation. So if you go on eBay, there's a guy that sells these. I guess I could find the link eventually, but I'm not going to do it while I'm filming anyway, but maybe I'll do it at the end if somebody asks. But all you do is type in small block Chevy valve cover studs, And of course I bought these in bulk because I have a bunch of small blocks to put together, but they're the perfect length stud. One end of the stud has an Allen headed hole. They give you the Allen wrench, and these are long enough to thread into the head. Use the thick blue gaskets that I'm using. I'll run the camera over there and show you what they are. The thick cover, which is extra thick where the bolt bosses are. They give you a small 1/4 inch AN washer and the serrated flange head 1/4 inch nuts, and there's still a little bit of stud sticking out. They look perfect when they're installed. That makes me happy. So I'm hoping my leakage will now be minimal. I'm swapping my grommets over because I have a PCV valve in one valve cover and a breather in the other, which is correct. The breather is sucking in air all the time because the PCV valve is pulling vacuum on the other cover, and it's a great system. It's not, people take it out thinking it's, you know, detrimental to performance. It's not. The only time the breather actually breathes is at full throttle when there's no vacuum. The PCV valve isn't doing anything. So crankcase vapor has to vent, and then it's going to come out the vent, the breather. Hopefully, no oil, just some mist. And with all the leaks that, you know, this created, oil sticking, dirt sticking to it, the area of the breather was clean, so she's fresh, only 4,000 miles old, and she's not breathing hard yet. The downfall of this cover, these covers, is they give you a baffle, in this case with blue vinyl stuck to it, which takes you 10 minutes to get that off. That's a pain. It's stuck down in the louvers they put in the vent and everything. You have to massage this to make it fit. And then the holes, they give you a conical head self-tapping screw. My no-no meter goes off hard right then because I'm putting a wood screw above my rotating engine parts and could fall right in. So it does, when you attach it, it actually feels pretty solid. I put Loctite in the holes. I modify this so it fits right in there and carefully put these down tight. And to date, it's never been a problem. Like I say, these covers have 3 screws in them. They're no fancier than this. It is the standard. Now, if you want to go back a couple years, I had a 383 Chevrolet crate motor, not a stroker. It was born a 383 as well. Brand new from Chevrolet. And that went in the Gold Nova, the Copper Nova. And that engine, I put a stud girdle on top of the roller rockers. And with that, you can't run the baffle, but effectively, the stud girdle is your baffle because it's right up tight to the hole and air has to go around it. Same idea. So there's no other choice. That's what you have to do. But this engine does not have a stud girdle, so on they go. Here's my baffle installed with my trusty wood screws. They actually go in with quite a bit of confidence. And again, I Loctited them. Swap the grommet over. That should be functional. Studs installed and the gasket pushed over the grommets, and make sure it didn't get out of shape. It looks good. Hope there's enough room here for the baffle. The other side seemed to fit. A smart guy would rotate the engine over with a bar. I'll probably just hit the key, see what happens. The rag is my PCV valve wrapped up. I didn't want it dripping on my fairly clean intake because I washed the engine last night. And this side's all installed. Plug wires back on. You can see just a little bit of stud sticking out of the nut. Should work. Yesterday I reworked the return spring a little bit. I had a bracket that bolts where the coil would normally go. And with a smaller air cleaner that I found in the shed, the throttle hanging up. The throttle hanging up was nothing related up here. It was the arm back here. For some reason, hitting The air cleaner, potentially because the engine's now up where it belongs. I don't know. But it was definitely hitting on the arm, causing the problem. I'm not a fan of the smallish air cleaner. I guess you'd call this a medium-sized air cleaner, but it allows you to work on the carburetor without taking the air cleaner off. So we're gonna run it. One of my next projects is going to be on the fuel pump, shortening up the rubber line that goes from the 3/8 line that comes from the trunk, and putting some smooth ID hose clamps on it. And the feed to the carburetor, I'm going to plumb in -6 from here, where there's a fitting I can remove. And down on the fuel pump is 3/8 inverted flare. I was just having this conversation this morning with my buddy Charlie. You can buy a 3/8 inverted flare to male -6 and just put a 90-degree fitting on there and head this direction. I don't know if I'll go behind the alternator like it is or out around this way. We'll see. I got plenty of real estate. But I don't like rubber clamps, rubber hose and clamps. I'm very picky for a reason. Well, I guess if you've done it long enough working at everybody else's stuff and see what happens, I don't want it on my own stuff. So, AN lines, here we come. I do like these Patriot headers. The pot number is visible on this side. I believe it's H8050. It's right there. Patriot tag right on the header. So I'll buy another set of these for the wagon when we get to it and put the engine where it belongs. I was monkeying around, moving the engine side to side, trying to use headers that I had. And now that I've used these headers, the plugs are easy to get to. You know, small blocks are kind of a pain, but as it goes, these fit. These only had to have minor dimpling when they were installed to clear the power steering, but I'm not putting power steering on the wagon. And while we're right here, the CCP master cylinder, probably a whole disc brake kit, I don't know. Well, the caliper's a Speedway, so I guess not, but the manual brakes on this car stop flawless. No complaints whatsoever. And this master cylinder seems to have a coating on it, so it's not sitting here rusting like most cast master cylinders. That's why I run typically an aluminum master cylinder, because I don't like it rusting. And you put paint on a master cylinder, well, you know what happens when the brake fluid gets to it. So again, years of being exposed to all this stuff, you kind of get your list of likes and dislikes. So in this case, whatever coating is on there is making this presentable looking still. Well, it still runs. That's a good thing. I think it's a much better look. I'm still moving a few things around and beautifying. I found for a ground strap from the cab to the engine was this wire that's loose, and this was hooked to the valve cover stud. Now, if you've ever had anything with solid lifters and the need to get to the valve train every now and then, extra things hooked to the valve cover, just not something I don't need. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And proper, in my book anyway, this is a cab or cowl to engine ground, and that is an engine to frame ground. Stuff's all available at your local hardware store. I'll need to do something similar in the trunk where the battery's mounted, so the battery itself has an auxiliary ground along with the one that disappears into the floor. I assume it just hooks to the frame. Even in a race car, I always run the power and ground from the trunk all the way to the front, or wherever the major power is going. I don't trust the frame structure to be a good ground because I've had trouble in the past. Now, most of the time, you get away with it. But someday you might be looking for odd electrical problems. So now, I have more work to do. Let's talk carburetors for a minute. My last choice for a manual transmission car would be a vacuum secondary carburetor like this one is. This particular case, the choke is also blocked out. It's a manual choke. Doesn't even have a cable. It's non-functional. It could be if you put a cable on it, but 2 pumps of the throttle in any weather. This thing's sitting here idling at low idle. The oil is perfectly clean. It was changed last year before I got the car. It still looks brand new. And the tailpipes are light gray. So this thing runs flawless. Never missed a beat since I've had it. And again, the performance is much more than I expected. My choice would be a double pumper, mechanical secondary, but at least this guy got it right. He put a Holley on it. That's the carburetor of choice. I would love to speak at length about my experience putting on aftermarket fuel injection systems, but I only know enough to be dangerous or be wary. I know with an LS platform, the Holley Terminator X, the Holley HP, and the Holley Dominator all work. You don't see a lot of people having trouble. I'm sure there's a few cases. And a lot of the cases, you have to be aware that's probably user-installed problems. They installed problems when they put it together by not following a few warnings. The small throttle body style, the ones you unbolt the carburetor and bolt an EFI unit on that's self-contained, those seem to be kind of tricky. Not saying they won't work, but with the smoke this fire, a lot of people have trouble with them. And I'd love to know. I'd love to have like a Holley Sniper to try. If I was to buy that style, I would go with the Holley, even though it's all imported stuff these days, but what isn't? Maybe the Phytech. Edelbrock had a hope. They were kind of leading the whole program 10 years ago, but they kind of abandoned everybody, from what I understand. Again, I'm just internet hearsay. I've never installed an aftermarket EFI fuel injection system, but I have LS swap stuff and done my own wiring harness with the factory PCM, and that is, doable. There's only been a few times in my life where I felt I had everything in its place, and that felt good, but most of the time, it's this. Nowadays, it's a sheer number of stuff and trying to keep it organized. Like these, I just bought them, so I knew where they were. Give it 6 months. I mean, all my small block Chevy parts are kind of in one spot now, but if I move it, I have to kind of lock it in memory. Now, it's laughable, but I've been doing this for the longest time. I have these plastic shoe boxes. They're $1 or $2 at the store, and I label them. This is battery ends, so I knew right where to look. I consider this battery stuff, so I got battery ends, junction box. I mean, anything I can think of that's, if I'm making battery cables or something, I'm going to look in this box. And I have that for everything you can think of. If you look around in my shop, you see all these little shoe boxes. I don't know what else to do. A typical bin arrangement, the bins aren't big enough. It'd be some pretty big, hefty bins. This thing's heavy. I got some of these full of bolts and grade 8 bolts and washers and stuff. I feel bad for the old tub. I've yet to break one completely. I occasionally break the covers, but hey, that's my system, so yeah. Dielectric compound, or this corrosion preventive compound. Every connection should have that. It's only, you know me, I don't like messes, but if you put it on like a battery terminal, put it on and then wipe most of it off, just leave a little bit, it kind of hardens up and it'll sit there and not collect too much dirt. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. I even have my battery end crimping tool there, so imagine that. Have a great day, and who knows what we're gonna do next, but I'll catch you in a couple days.